just because it's like a sense of, or it's a form of like therapy. What do they call it when like you're just exposed to something, so you get over
I
a
just can't
fear?
help. I can't help myself from laughing. Your only noon game. You got to go to one noon game at Lambeau and they lost.
Dude, we didn't lose.
uh,
We got our teeth kicked in.
well, as my parents both politely texted to me and probably tweeted at you at some point, where's your corner panic button? Where is that at now?
It's sitting on my lap.
I was watching Red Zone with Garrett, and the journalists that I follow that are at Lambeau are 55 seconds ahead of us. So I see on my phone that there's a blocked punt for a touchdown. Garrett's about to go get a drink or something. I'm like, no, Garrett, sit down. We're about to see something really cool.
Dude, when that happened, so we were in the standing room section, and there were 6 of us, and it just like silence fell amongst everybody. And as you know, there is a height difference between Michelle and I, and she was kind of standing in front of me, and she like looked back at me with these like puppy dog eyes, just like, man, I'm sorry this is happening. And without even like looking or like breaking eye contact, she like reached down, picked up her Miller Lite, and just handed it to me, and like turned around and started watching the game again.
I love that. That's a real one right there. But and I know the Bears suck, and like we're supposed to suck though, right? We've sucked forever, and there's nothing surprising about us sucking this year. But it's like it's it's weird slash fun slash I don't know, seeing the Packers get their teeth kicked in by the Jets of all people at Lambeau was equal parts shocking slash entertaining slash confusing. And I know we normally start with the Bears Packers kind of towards the tail end of our reviews, but I feel it's appropriate this week to start with the Packers.
Quite literally, the only reason, I shouldn't say the only reason, one of the only reasons I have not yet hit the panic button entirely. And again, I've said this before, and I'm not comparing this team to the 2010 Packers. But in 2010, we lost in overtime to the eventual 7-9 Washington Redskins, and we lost in overtime to the eventual, what was their record? Or sorry, the Redskins finished 6-10. We also lost in overtime the following week to the 7-9 Dolphins. So that's the only thing holding me together right now.
I'm glad you got something to hold on to. I mean, for me, it's the enormous amount of salary cap space we're going to have next year, and that we might actually get someone for Justin Fields to throw to. But for you, it's the 2010 Packers.
Yep. I always tell people don't live in the past, and I'm not. I'm just using the past as a life vest that I'm clinging to.
Yeah, I could tell that you had had a couple beers on Sunday. I don't know if they were before or after or during.
Couple before, more after.
Okay. The video you sent me, I was like, wow, we are in spicy territory right now.
Yeah. So I have all my bullets, but I don't know if I have it in me to like go through them all.
What do you want me to what do you want me to go down my list?
No, I don't.
Why?
Because
it's fun.
here are the 3 main takeaways I had.
Can I interject after each one?
Yes.
Okay.
Number 1, if you can't block, you can't win. We didn't block for our quarterback. We didn't block
hang on
for
a
our running
second.
backs.
Someone told me on Twitter today that if the Packers went and traded for DK Metcalf, which they would never do because his contract just signed, it's got freaking fresh ink on it still, and that dead cap is insane. Like what? All right. Anyways, they act like people on Twitter act like the Packers acquiring a new receiver is just going to be a magically solve everything solution for the Packers.
Didn't you see my reply to that?
Was it the Ike podcast that you said that to, or was it someone else?
It was that and then other people. I said they said who should the Packers acquire, and they listed like DK Metcalf. who the hell else is on there that I was like,
Deshaun Jackson, who signed with
yes.
the Ravens today. But it's like, yeah,
like,
Deshaun Jackson's going to mystically solve all of your problems.
He's literally just a faster version of Sammy Watkins at this point
Yes.
in their career.
Who and neither of them can block, which is astounding.
But I don't know why and when I say we, I don't mean me because I'm not I'm not going to say that word. I'm something. I'm not a lot of things, but I'm something. Yeah, we'll say that. But why on earth those that root for the same team as I think that this is a purely a receiver issue are just drinking the Aaron Rodgers Kool-Aid. And I also said myself it's not just a quarterback problem. It's not. There's a couple of things, but that's why point number one, if you can't block, you can't win. We couldn't block for our quarterback. Oh, dude, there is a video. I wish I could. We might have to put this.
Is it the Dobbs soaking up the coverage and leaving Cobb wide open?
No, that's one. This is still on blocking. There's one of Royce Newman just getting eaten alive, and it was like, okay, that was the play that is eventually gonna lead to the permanent benching of him, because we couldn't block for our quarterback. For the most part, we couldn't block for our run game. Clearly, we couldn't block for special teams, whether it was a field goal or a punt.
I thought you guys fixed all that.
That's what they said. That's what they said in the offseason. So that's point number one. Do you have any interjections to that?
What do you – this might be a layup. What do you make of the people calling for Rodgers to be benched after said game?
Okay, when I texted you that, I also texted you that Packers fans were on lighting sun watch.
Yeah.
So if you go back to like February, March, I was one of the individuals toying with the idea that maybe it's time we move on from Rodgers because his trade value is as high as it's ever going to be. And, you know, we got this awesome defense. Let's sink resource into the defense, the run game, and we'll rebuild a quarterback through the draft. And obviously that didn't play out. And when it didn't play out, I said, you know what? Obviously hindsight's 20/20, but who in their right mind, regardless of every other variable at play, would just willingly trade away a reigning two-time MVP? Like, strip everything down. Like, that's just not a decision a franchise makes. And I know you disagree probably just from, like, a salary cap standpoint and an age standpoint. But I just truly don't think you can come up with a scenario. This is probably the closest you could come up with, but I don't think there is a scenario where trading away an MVP makes any sense. Now, again, hindsight 20/20, it looks pretty smart when you look at how bad Russell Wilson looks in Seattle, how Rodgers is playing, and how Brady's playing. You kind of look at, and not that they're the reigning MVPs, or not that Russell Wilson's ever gotten an MVP vote in his entire career, but that's besides the point.
Shout out Geno Smith.
Yeah. So the people that are saying now that we need to bench him and that he is the number one problem are quite literally clueless, because I'm not saying 12 doesn't have to carry some of this blame. He does. He's your MVP quarterback. He's your leader. He's supposed to be your voice of reason and all these other things. So there is some blame to fall on his shoulders. But in what world people think Jordan Love is the answer, man, let me join you in that universe, because it sounds like a wild time.
What is the Cliff Notes version of 2 and 3, so I don't ask questions that intersect with those?
Number 2, this is more of an observation. And sometimes, I don't know if you notice this, sometimes when you're at a game, it's hard to fill in gaps because you don't have, you're missing some of the context to different things. You don't get as many replays and like looks at things. So sometimes you miss that when you're at the stadium. But at one point I looked up at the scoreboard in the third quarter, maybe it was the early fourth quarter, and it said Zach Wilson, 99 yards passing.
Sounds about right.
And I realized half of that came on that one pass play. So my point there was, in the video, I said the defense didn't totally stink. They really stunk it up in the fourth quarter when it came to the run game. The run game of the Jets completely gashed us. And at that point, I think it was just, and I'm not excusing the defense, But it really just looked like a lack of effort and a lack of kind of wanting to even be on the field at that point. Like, no matter what we do, this game's kind of over. But between the Brees Hall touchdown where he wasn't even supposed to have the ball and that drive at the end of the fourth quarter to run all the time down, the defensive line just got pushed around. The linebackers got pushed around. Our offensive line got pushed around. So number 2 was we just got our tails kicked in the trenches on both sides of the ball. And I know that kind of goes back to blocking. And I don't know if it's because we were coming off a London game. I don't know what it was, but we did not look physical in any sense of the definition. And our DBs weren't flying around. I don't know. We just looked blah. Point 3, it's not even really a point. It's just, again, a kind of a general observation of the offense. It's crazy to me that we are now in the 4th season of this offense, and for whatever reason, our starting quarterback, who somewhat drove his previous head coach out of the state of Wisconsin, for whatever reason, insists on playing Mike McCarthy football.
Explain that.
Well, your favorite term, hero ball. The amount of times I have to see him check into a 35-yard back shoulder throw on 3rd and 2 or 3rd and 1.
My favorite thing in the entire world in football is that.
Between that and now him coming out and saying that there's too much motion and the offense is too complex and we need to simplify it. Okay, maybe there's something to be said about simplifying the scheme for some of the rookies. But when you're talking about guys like Rodgers, Aaron Jones, Allen Lazard, Bob Tunyon, Mercedes Lewis, Bakhtiari, Randall Cobb, you're talking about like all pro caliber players and veterans in this league. There should be no need to simplify an entire offense for a handful of rookies. Maybe you need to simplify some of their schemes, but come on. I don't know why we're trying to go backwards right now.
He kind of dropped a bit of a nuke in his press conference. He said we need to simplify the offense and that there better not be any grandstanding by the players within the Packers via media clips and whatnot or whatever. At which point someone asked, like, are you going to be – do you, like, follow that on Twitter? Or how do you get that information? He said – I think he said Peter sends them to me, which is kind of snaky that, like, oh, hey, Aaron, did you see what Jair said in the press this week? And he just texts him a screenshot of that rather than Aaron just looking at him. So whatever. But it didn't seem like he did the team / Matt LaFleur any favors with his press conference, because when he was asked to clarify what he meant about simplifying the offense, he didn't really give an answer.
No, he didn't. And again, I replied and retweeted to a thread of some of the like all 22 footage. And the other thing that's driving me nuts is I'm not going to sit here and say the Packers have a top 5 or even maybe a top 15 receiving room in the NFL. They certainly don't. But that being said, again, I know what you see on film is sometimes different than what the quarterback's expecting. But there was a handful of plays that looked like the receivers did their job and they brought the coverage where it was supposed to be. And you kind of referred to the one where Dobbs not only took the corner with him, but also took the safety over the top and left Cobb open. The first 3rd down of the game, which was the complete underthrow to Big Bob that almost turned into a pick 6 that thankfully hit the ground before it bounced up.
Not sure about that one, but that's okay.
I think it did hit the ground. I truly do. I would say it was 95% conclusive.
Yeah, that's to me. It's not whether it did or didn't. It was it conclusive or not? And I don't think it was conclusive, but I'm also not going to die on that hill or anything.
Yeah, but that's a throw that he usually makes in his sleep. You know, that out route on a 3rd down where you get 11 yards when you need 9. Like, that is the Aaron Rodgers throw that he used to hit just on rhythm all the time.
Wasn't it a little chilly at Lambeau?
I mean, it was in the mid-40s. It was cold enough to, like, I had gloves and there was people in winter hats, but I wouldn't call it, like, cold. I mean,
If it was a
damp.
dome, he would have made that throw.
I don't know, man. I don't know. He didn't make that throw in Minnesota.
That was week 1. That's a different Rodgers.
Yeah, that's preseason. But I don't know. Again, panic button's not fully hit because we're 500. I'm trying to come up with positives, but
You got to play Taylor Heineke next week. Wow, weird how that happened. That's so crazy. That's the 3rd time this year.
yeah, we also just got to play Zach Wilson. We also got to play Daniel Jones.
Well, I think in the Packers' defense, I think the Giants' defense is underrated for sure. I think they actually have one of the sneaky good secondaries of the NFL.
Or
And
Jets,
then as
you
far
mean?
as the Giants 2 weeks ago.
Oh.
But the
Well,
Jets.
and the Jets.
Yeah, the Jets. If you look at everybody under the age of 27 on the Jets, I think they have the best talent pool in the NFL.
They truly do.
Now, something to be said about, is Zach Wilson the guy? Not quite sure yet. Didn't look amazing. His juke move on Preston Smith when Preston was chasing him down, and he gave him a little shimmy and then skirted up the sideline and almost threw a ridiculously crazy pass for a touchdown. I thought that, those are the kind of plays I love watching, even if I think they're completely reckless. But hey, it's cool. But still something to be said if he's the guy. Breece Hall, whew, God, he looks good. I am so glad he's on my fantasy team. And yeah, I mean they're set. I think if they can, they're kind of in the, I can't remember what year it was, that Jaguars team, where it's like the only question mark to, in a certain extent, is the quarterback play. Can they get some decent quarterback play to make a run? And I had them at 9-8 before the season started, so I think they're well on their way, and they do get to go play an inept Broncos next. So time will tell. Anything else Packers related before we move on? The Bears segment's going to be much shorter.
Yeah, I think the only other thing I'll say is this is just like a personal take on the whole thing. Like, we've kind of been through this before with other teams and quarterbacks where we write them off in week 6, week 7 of the season. Again, that's another reason I'm not fully ready to do it. I mean, remember how bad the Chiefs' offense looked last year up until the middle of November? Like, there was those question marks around the Chiefs' offense. The Patriots, during the Tom Brady era, kind of went through this on and off. Packers have been there before.
I think the main thing with them, though, is they didn't lose their best. I mean, barring the quarterback, they didn't lose their best offensive player.
That's fair. Well, yeah. And some could say,
that's where I'd be at with the Chiefs now since they lost Tyreek.
Well, and some people could say, and some people even did say that they thought Devontae was a better player than Rodgers the last few years, which I think that argument probably holds up even better now. Point being, I'm a ride or die. I tell you what, I was there in the Mike McCarthy fire year when we lost to the Lions 31-0 on the day before New Year's Eve in 15 degrees and snow, and I stayed until there was 0 seconds left on the clock. I will continue to do so. Still love this team. Still love everything about it. I just hope. I think the thing that makes this a tougher pill to swallow in times like this is, and I know you get pleasure out of this, and I don't blame you for it because I would be the same way if this happened to the Bears or Vikings. But just to know how close we were the last 2 seasons, and to kind of have those feelings of the window is shutting start to be validated just makes those losses hurt even more. And we kind of talked about when you enjoy a season versus a guaranteed Super Bowl, just how fun those seasons were. But I do think it's also kind of oddly and sickly funny that I just talked about the other day how much I enjoy the playoffs when the Packers aren't in it because it's so unstressful. And I'm just waiting for the moment that you get to clip that and play it once the Packers officially are eliminated from the playoffs.
What? Hang on a second. Would I ever?
So that was a lot more than just a wrap-up, but I still love this team. It sucks, but I'm excited to go to another game in a month and hopefully hear some more Todd Rundgren than I heard this past week.
Well, like I said, you play the Commanders this week, so congratulations on your win.
Hickey, 4 weeks ago you said, well, the Packers got the Patriots, the Giants, the Jets, and the Commanders. They're going to go 4-0, and they're gonna put it all together. So you just keep doing this voodoo magic, and I'll sit back and
I
take
don't
the
even think
pins. Take the
do the
pins in
Packers
the
have a
neck.
legitimate win yet? They've beat a Buccaneers team that clearly is not firing on all cylinders by 2 points. They beat the Bears, who suck. And who is their third win? The Patriots without Mac Jones and Brian Hoyer by 3 points in overtime. They don't even have a legitimate win yet, and they're not going to get one this week, and then they go to Buffalo.
Do the Vikings have a legitimate win yet?
No, but that's a separate argument because I also think the Vikings are massively overrated right now. But we will get to that when we get to the Vikings and Dolphins. I don't think the Vikings are very good either. I think the NFC North is as weak as it's ever been. Well, at least in the last 20 years. There's not one team in the NFC North that's going to go to the playoffs that people should be afraid of.
Not right now.
Maybe the Vikings at home, if they get the Cowboys in the first round, maybe they'll win. But you talking the Vikings have to go on the road to Philly? Like, absolutely not.
Yeah.
We can start with the Vikings. So the Vikings went to Miami, won 24-16. Rookie Skylar Thompson started as quarterback and then hurt his throwing thumb. So it was back to Teddy Two Gloves to reassemble the team. And the only person on the Dolphins that looked like they gave a damn was Tyreek. Otherwise, they looked pretty awful. And their pass protection was awful. Their ability to stop Jefferson and Dalvin was pretty awful. And so, yeah, but the Vikings won. I would think it would be a different game if Tua was there, but I just don't think the Dolphins are as good as their 3-0 start indicated.
Yeah, I would agree. I didn't get to see much of this game. Again, I was telling you before we started recording, I didn't get to really see any of the noon games, and I only caught part of the Chiefs-Bills game. But for me, this one was painful because I don't know if I explained this to you, but my starting quarterbacks in fantasy were Tua and Derek Carr. Well, guess who was on bye this week? And obviously Tua's hurt. So I picked up Cooper Rush and Skylar Thompson on the waiver wire. And my quarterbacks combined for a total of 12 points this week, so that was good.
You know, I won my game because I went into Monday night with a 3.5 point lead, and the other guy had Melvin Gordon. Melvin Gordon had 8 rushing yards. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me right now. That's the best fantasy win I've had in a long time. That's kind of the things you hope for of like, oh, I hope he gets a non-serious injury on the first play of the game or something like that. So, and the sad part is if I was going to – so the guy who lost, he scored the second most points in our league that week, and he lost because I scored the most. But it had been the other way. I would have scored the second most points. And it's like, that's kind of lame. Like, if you score the second most points and lose, like that doesn't help you in the win-loss column.
So I just have to say, going into Monday Night Football, I was up by like 20 points, and the only player I had left to play was Derwin James. The guy I was playing had Justin Herbert, Melvin Gordon, Eric Subert, the tight end, Brandon McManus, J.C. Jackson. You get the point. They had a lot of players left, and I somehow still won. We were the 2 lowest scoring teams in the league, and now going into this week, I strategically drafted my team so everybody had their bye week in week 7. So right now, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 of my starters on bye.
I think you're toast. I only got
I did that
Jalen
on
Hurts out
purpose.
this week, but man, I have the best team I've had in quite some time. Just with Jalen Hurts, Nick Chubb, Breece Hall, Jamar Chase, Amari Cooper, Mark Andrews. Oh God, I'm gonna miss this team next year. That's for sure. It's like you and your Packers. I just gotta enjoy it while it's happening. But like I was saying with the Vikings, I don't think the Vikings have a legitimate win yet against a feared opponent. I mean, they barely beat the Lions. They barely beat the Bears, both at home. They beat a Week 1 Packers team. They beat a Dolphins team without Tua. their schedule is going to get much tougher for sure. So I think their real tests haven't really happened yet. But some of the wins that they've had so far against teams that aren't very good have been by a possession. Not even like, they went to – if they hosted Chicago and won by 20, that'd be good. If they went to Miami without Tua and won by, 14 plus, that would be good in my opinion. But to win by 8 against a Dolphins team that was started with their third string quarterback, I think is not good in my opinion. So I think the people who have them at like 4 or 5 in their power rankings right now are insane.
Yeah, I was talking to a buddy of mine. Actually, he's a family member, my cousin's husband, Derek, uh, who was pretty psyched to see that I've picked the Vikings to win every single game this year. And I said, Derek, it's not because I'm a believer in the Vikings. It's because I'm not a believer in anyone that they have played thus far this season.
Yeah. I'm actually literally 9 minutes ago, there's been a statement released by Dan Snyder. So today, Tuesday, at about 6:15 p.m. Central Time, Dan Snyder just released a statement to the owners of the NFL. We could probably get to this one next. There is allegedly a vote by, Jim Irsay has publicly commented that there may be a vote coming in which if 24 NFL owners vote to remove Daniel Snyder from the ownership of the Commanders, that is allowed and it can go forward. And Snyder sent everybody a letter addressing an ESPN article that he claims is malicious and false, contains false and malicious statements. And he goes into more to defend himself. I feel like it might be a good opportunity here. So this vote is allegedly coming, but who actually knows? I know there's an NFL owners meeting today. This might be a good opportunity for David Lighting to express his feelings about Daniel Snyder, because I know those are there.
I can't say much without just lacing this episode with expletives, but
go right ahead. I know where this segment started, so go right ahead. It'll be an easy edit.
The guy is such a piece of scum, and there is no reason why he still needs to be attached to anything within the National Football League. And if he's got a quote-unquote tip sheet on all these other people, so be it. Get all these scumbags out of here, because I know it's just kind of reality, and I know that's the world that we unfortunately live in, is that some of these people with money and power end up controlling things that we invest an unreasonable amount of time and energy into that we have no control over. But it just really sucks because you see the positive impact that like this sport and just sports in general have on people, just from like a way to mentally get away from everyday things, or just really cool experiences for people with illnesses and kids and stuff like that. And then to know that the puppet master behind all this is just a piece of shit just always really bothers me.
Yeah, I think it takes a particular scumbag move to you kind of like last hope to keep your own franchise is to kind of burn the system on the way out of town, and to kind of, like you said, ruin it for a lot of people. Now, does that mean that we should just sit quiet if somebody out there is doing some sort of malpractice-y shit? Nope. That should be addressed immediately and should be something investigated, looked into, sanctions, things like that. But don't do it as a reactionary thing just to keep yourself into power. Do it because it's for the betterment of humanity. Now, if Daniel Snyder says, I'm doing this because I need to have dirt on these guys and I want to make sure that I stay in power and or bring other people down with me, then you're an asshole. If you're bringing something to light because you're just doing it out of the good grace of your heart, and that because there's no other hidden agenda or anything like that, I know Jerry Jones is not an upstanding human most of the times, but if he did it against a division rival of like the week leading to the Cowboys game, I would be like, maybe some ulterior motive. If he has something on, I'm not even gonna say Virginia McCaskey, because what could possibly this poor old lady, I don't think there's any dirt on her. Let's say Mara for the Giants. Let's say he had some, no, I guess that's a division rival too. That doesn't really work.
Jim Irsay.
Johnson for the Jets. Jim Irsay. Well, I guess that's a little sus now. But Jim Irsay, let's say he had some dirt on Jim Irsay. Yeah,
The
like
Colts hate continues.
right. I would be more likely to applaud him actually for doing something like that. But just the way he's going about this whole situation really grinds my gears. I was really sad we couldn't beat them on Thursday night, but we'll see what happens here. I'm curious about how this vote's gonna go. I'm wondering if it was a good idea for Jim Irsay to say anything, because now I feel like he's going to incur the wrath of Dan Snyder, whatever that looks like. I'm sure Dan Snyder's on a yacht somewhere still. I don't even know if he was at the owners' meeting, but we'll see. Crazy times.
I was going to say, can I just touch on one other thing that's just regarding league-wide that I forgot to add to the rundown, but now just seems like an appropriate time to talk about it?
Yeah.
Did you see the power move that Mike Vrabel pulled and did a reply all to the NFL when they sent out their email about reviewing the officiating stuff from the week?
No, let's see here.
So apparently, and I'm going to screw this up, so
I got it in front of me. Do you want me to read it?
Yeah, go ahead.
Mike Vrabel reply all and issued this response to everybody in the email chain about the NFL's officiating video to all coaches and general managers. Said, quote, I appreciate the time and energy that goes into these videos, but I suggest we devote every minute of our officiating department's time ensuring our officiating crews are as well trained in the clarifications we worked to create in the offseason, and that each crew is as consistent as possible. Thank you.
I don't know why. That just really jacked me up and made me like Mike Vrabel even more.
See, we said last week he's just got this tough guy persona. That is that is him. He doesn't have an offensive or defensive persona. He's just the tough guy.
And it was so professional too. Like, please see my please see my previous email. Yeah, per my previous email. We can discuss this at a later time. I don't know. I just love that, and I just would love to be another one in the office of another one of those coaches when they got the email, and how many people probably sent him like a text message. Like,
I bet Coach Flus was just laughing his ass off because he doesn't seem like a very hostile guy. So
no,
yeah, Bills Chiefs. AFC Championship rematch. Oh no, Patrick Mahomes lost. Remember when I said on the last episode that I hopes he keeps his same energy that he had against the Raiders, beating them at home for like the 8th time in a row? Oh no, the Bills won. Ah, that sucks for the Chiefs. That's such a shame.
Tell me you're really disappointed without telling me you're really disappointed.
I can't. I'm so happy. Kidding me? Bills are the team that I definitely am rooting to win the Super Bowl if it can't be the Bears. I just think they are a really good team, and I really hope they don't screw this up, and I really hope they don't have some devastating injury to like Allen or Diggs or anybody along the way, one of the kind of blue chip players they have. But they're just a really fun team to watch, and they're just really well coached, and I really appreciate just watching them on the field. It's been a 5 or so year rebuild that has been almost as it's like the gold standard of rebuilds is this Bills team, and they're just a treat to watch. So I really hope they can keep it going. I also don't like Mahomes and the Chiefs. So, well, let me rephrase that. I don't like Mahomes. So seeing them lose is always satisfying. It was a little close there at the end. I mean, they did need a Dawson Knox touchdown to win it, and then they got a turnover right away because Mahomes made a rookie quarterback error, like something I would expect out of Zach Wilson almost right there at the end. So, yeah, I am not disappointed by that result. I'm really ecstatic, and it's always nice to see Mahomes humbled a little bit.
The only fear I have is this just seems so on brand for the Chiefs and Bills, whether it's head to head or against like a different opponent or even the Patriots back kind of in their dynasty. And I'm not saying the Chiefs have matched that, but the Chiefs and the Bills are kind of close to dethroning them. The Chiefs have kind of taken that place of the Patriots as the kind of the AFC measuring stick that if you go into their house and beat them, that you sit atop of that conference, or at least sit up there with the best of the best. But it just seems very on brand for the Bills to win this game in somewhat dramatic fashion, and then come playoffs to lose in dramatic fashion. But I will say, it seems like every time the Bills have kind of faced that adversity, kind of like last year with the Patriots when they lost to him in the regular season, and then they were able to just. I keep stopping myself from expletives. When they shit down their throat in the playoffs, they kind of overcame
That's
that.
much better.
I just know that there's people that listen, and I shouldn't talk like that. Anyways, why should I care? But where was I going? Oh, that they seem to kind of overcome those hurdles as they're placed in front of them, and maybe this was that kind of last, you know, skeleton in the closet they needed to get rid of to clear the next hurdle.
Yeah, I agree with all that. So hopefully the Bills can keep going. I know the Bills have a much easier division compared to the Chiefs. Although, who knows?
Do they?
With the Broncos and Raiders, maybe not. But I think the talent pool in the AFC West is greater. Now, whether they can all put it together remains to be seen.
Bailey Zappi greater than Russell Wilson
Yeah,
right now. Spot the lie.
I guess. I mean, Geno Smith's an MVP candidate, if you ask me. But neither here nor there. We can talk about the Broncos next. I don't know if we have anything new to comment about the Broncos. Losing by 3 in overtime last night to the Chargers. Russell Wilson started out 10 of 10.
To 10 different receivers.
And then in the second half, 72 yards total. It's weird when they benched. So Chargers signed a bunch of people this offseason. J.C. Jackson, corner from New England, got 5 years, $72 million, I think, and has been a complete bust. And they benched him yesterday, and as soon as they benched him, the defense got better. Offense, still something to be said. Time management, clock management, still something to be said. Coaching decisions, still something to be said. But hey, they won. Meanwhile, the Broncos still suck. And yeah, I don't, like I said, there's only so many times we can talk about the Broncos in the same manner before it just becomes redundant, right?
Yeah, a little bit.
There's nothing new. The only new thing I have to say about the Broncos is when Javonte Williams and Melvin Gordon were the two starting running backs, they made it an emphasis to try to work Melvin Gordon in more, even though I think Javonte Williams is a better running back. Now, Javonte goes down with a season-ending injury, and they signed Latavius Murray off the street to come into play. And now, all of a sudden, when it's Latavius Murray and Melvin Gordon as their running backs, now Melvin Gordon's on the bench. I don't entirely understand that line of logic, barring Melvin Gordon having an injury, which I'm pretty sure wasn't the case.
No, it's I expected a lot more out of Hackett, to be honest. And not to like bring this back to the Packers, but I think it shows you how critical the full combination and complement of head coach, quarterback, offensive coordinator, quarterback coach, and so on, like how important that entire dynamic is and how seemingly that entire group got broken up at this offseason, and all three of them seem to not be in a in a great place without one another, coaching wise.
No. I say that about Luke Getsy too, but we'll get there.
Yeah.
So, talked about kind of some of the Packers' wins. Buccaneers lost at Pittsburgh to the Steelers after Kenny Pickett was knocked out with a concussion, and then Mitch Trubisky comes in and leads them to victory. And man, the NFC in particular. So like right now, it's the Eagles, the Giants with an asterisk, the Vikings with an asterisk, and then everybody else. Because I personally still don't know where the Giants are at, and I don't think the Vikings have been tested yet. I think the Giants are on the above side of above average, but I wouldn't say they're Super Bowl contending by any stretch of the imagination. So really, if we're looking at the rest of the year, barring another Jalen Hurts getting injured, et cetera, it's pretty much the Eagles to lose because the Buccaneers they could be on that Chiefs trajectory like you mentioned where maybe they'll figure it out in November, but they just don't look like they have it together right now.
Yeah, they really don't. There's one team that I'm kind of keeping in my back pocket that I'll talk about in a second. But when I saw, you should have heard kind of like it wasn't even cheers. It was kind of like, oh my gosh, that happened when they showed this score at Lambeau. Um, it was just very much like shock. And you know what I'm talking about. You kind of hear like an
Oh
entire
yeah.
stadium kind of make a noise, like whoa, like. Uh, but I know I talked earlier about how we've kind of written off Brady at different times, Rodgers at different times. But this season, more than ever, when you have Rodgers, Brady, and Russell Wilson all struggling, it really feels like the era of the top quarterbacks in the league is officially changing over to the Josh Allens. Patrick Mahomes is kind of one of those overlaps between the two. Justin Herbert, maybe Jalen Hurts. We'll see what happens down the line, but it really feels like that changing of the guard is officially happening with these quarterbacks. Because the crazy thing is, it's not like the in most cases the Buccaneers and Packers and Broncos defenses are letting these teams down. It's a lack of offensive production that's holding these teams back, which is just unbelievable. If I were to tell you that all three of these quarterbacks would be in that same situation.
Yeah, they all actually. Those teams do have really good defenses. So maybe the old adage that defenses win games. You still need something on the other side of the ball.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think the NFC right now is the AFC playoffs are going to be pretty fun. I'm not entirely sold on the NFC picture yet, barring the Eagles.
So I think you're mostly right. However, I think once Dak Prescott comes back, there could be a case made for the Cowboys
Hold
being
on. It
a
was Cooper Rush's first career loss. All right. Let's not start making grandiose statements quite yet, even though he's going back to the bench this week. But no, I clearly think that the argument was never Cooper Rush is better than
no,
Dak. The argument was Cooper Rush is 4,000% cheaper than Dak on the ledger.
correct.
So I do think, obviously, when Dak comes back, they're going to be in a much better situation. And like they have the Lions at home this week. I think if Dak's playing, that should be no problem for him, right?
One would think, but we've seen crazier things happen.
It seems like we're on an every other week trajectory. 2
With
weeks
all
ago
these
we got
teams.
2 weeks ago we got smoked in our picks, and then last week we were both pretty good. I think you were 12 and I was 10 or something like that. And then this week again, I was 8-6 and you were 7-7. So we're kind of on this like every other week of, especially the noon games. We've been particularly struggling at the ones after 3 o'clock. We seem to be nailing, but the ones at noon we particularly keep struggling with. I think it's that super special witching hour we get
Yeah.
at like 2:30 every Sunday.
The good news is I rebounded in my Free Play Friday wagers and went 3-1 this weekend. So
I did text you that. I'm like, at least you hit the under on the Packers.
least I hit the under.
Jets.
at least I hit the under.
There's always a silver lining, right?
There always is.
Yeah. So, well, anyways, the Cowboys, they lost at Philly on Sunday night, although they did look much better in the second half. So maybe a coaching moment there for the Eagles, as they looked super good in the first half and pretty brutal, particularly the third quarter. They looked pretty brutal.
They did the same thing against the Cardinals last week too. So that is putting that just kind of in the
Memory bank.
kind of in the memory bank that the Packers were on this really hot first half, terrible second half trend the last few seasons. So I know what it's like, Eagles fans, and it's definitely something to watch out for because it'll eventually come back to bite you in the ass when you're playing a team with a legitimate offense, unlike a Cooper Rush-led Cowboys offense and a Kyler Murray, Kliff Kingsbury, DeAndre Hopkins-less Cardinals offense.
I'm really glad there was a moment in our podcast history where we got to discuss that there was a poll out there that had Kliff Kingsbury as the 8th best coach in football.
Dude, I forgot about that. He's going to be lucky if he makes it through the season.
He's not going to. There's no way. Well, there might be a way if they're doing the Well, he and Steve Keim don't deserve a job.
No.
I think the only hope for them is that Hopkins is back this week. DeAndre Hopkins returns from his suspension, so that will definitely elevate that offense and at least give Kyler a security blanket if all else fails. But there's nothing to point to where it's like, yes, Kliff Kingsbury is the 8th best coach because of X, Y, Z. There's nothing. Nothing.
And right now they're blowing through his his safety blanket of the early part of the season when they always look good, and it's only going to be downhill from here, knowing his track record.
Yeah, Call of Duty's out in a couple weeks.
Done. Dunzo. Put a fork in
I know
him.
I know it's not how it works, but I still love that joke.
Okay, question. So would you have said at the beginning of the season the Cardinals were a playoff contender?
I think I had him at 9-8, so that would have been a no. I mean, I guess
Okay.
that would have been on the brink, but
Okay. Are there any teams you saw making the playoffs at the beginning of the season that you can confidently say right now, I do not think they will make the playoffs? And please don't say the Packers. I can't. I've had enough emotional damage.
the Broncos.
Okay. Yes.
I think the Packers have a couple tough games coming up, but then I also think there's some winnable games in there for sure. I mean, you got to think you still play the Lions twice, you still play the Bears once, you play the Titans at home, you play the Commanders. There's still some for sure winnable games in there. I mean,
Vikings
it's not
at
all
home.
not all kittens and rainbows, but it's also, I think that's where for the Packers, that's where I'm coming from is I don't necessarily think they're not going to make the playoffs. They're just not going to be in the same situation that they've been in the last several years of being this all-fearing juggernaut Packers team that everybody wants to avoid in the playoffs. That quite opposite. I think there's going to be a lot of teams that are looking forward to playing the Packers if they get to the playoffs. So,
And I can't wait. That's all it took. It took 48 minutes for me to make a 180. Let's go.
I hope you guys draw the 49ers in San Francisco.
And then we're gonna exercise all the demons this year. We're gonna be the 7th seed, and we're gonna ride the wave all the way to Phoenix.
Whatever.
And I'm hopping on a plane, and I'm staying with my in-laws and going to the game.
Can you bring me with?
No,
Oh, what did I do to deserve that?
your attitude right now.
I'm laughing.
Yeah, at me, not with me.
Whatever. Yes, you've never laughed at the Bears, or you've never laughed at me wearing a Packers jersey at Road America ever.
Hey, speaking of the Bears, I was rooting for him this week because
We're not
Hey,
there yet.
oh,
We're not there
okay.
yet. We're not.
Oh
there
yeah,
yet.
I
Hang
see
on.
you have Giants and Ravens.
Well,
highlighted.
I also have some corrections from last week. So when I was slandering the Raiders and their clock management at the end of the game with the Chiefs, they did not have any timeouts when they did that 4th down play. So I'll give them a little bit of a pass on that. Remember when we were talking about how teams got 1st-round picks and we couldn't quite figure out how?
Yes.
So the Dolphins have a 1st-round pick from the 49ers this year because of the Trey Lance trade. So they gave up two 1st-round picks to move up to take Trey Lance. And so this is the 2nd of those picks.
It's funny. In my mind, I'm like, oh, it was part of Mike McDaniels was a part of a trade, but I know it's not the case. But I like to play that game in my head.
Well, I mean, he did go from San Francisco to Miami, so I guess he's reaping the reward of that trade.
Yep.
And then the Eagles' first that they have this year, which is looking like a top 10 pick, is from the Saints, was part of a swap trade to move up for the Saints last year. How good does that trade look right now?
Really good.
Really good. So good for them. Justin Tucker was an undrafted free agent from Texas in 2012. I couldn't remember what year he started. I knew it was, I think I said 2009. I couldn't remember quite off the top of my head. And then when we were talking about what intro song we would pick, and you had said that Magnificent 11 or whatever, and I said the King's Dead by J-Rock.
Yep.
And I said, oh, we can't do that because they're trademarked. My loving brother, who is in law school right now, said that songs are copyrighted and not trademarked. So I just wanted to...
Yeah. I should have known that. I should have known that.
Yes, you are our legal authority on starting up the podcast in the off season. So
I mean, look at me. Button-up shirt, sweater vests.
looking very fetching tonight, I'll say.
Yeah.
Good job. I'm proud of you. All right. Well, one last game we want to touch on before we get to the Bears is the Ravens blew a 20-10 lead in the fourth quarter to lose to the Giants, who are turning out to be quite the fourth quarter cheat code team in the NFL. It seems like if you have any sort of lead on the Giants in the fourth quarter, you're screwed. So, yeah. I can't believe the Ravens lost.
No, this is another one of those I don't really know what to make of either of these teams because on the surface, I feel as though the Ravens should have at least 2 more wins than they have right now, and I still can't look at the Giants and take them seriously. Like you said, their defense is underrated, but man, Daniel Jones is about to play himself into a really awkward contract situation.
Yeah, but if you ask the Packers fans on Twitter, the Ravens just signed Deshaun Jackson, so it's all good.
Sunshine and rainbows.
Yes, it's all good. Problem solved for the Ravens. You guys have nothing to worry about for the rest of the year. All good. Welcome to Super Bowl Sunday eventually, right? Yeah, I mean their fourth quarter. I mean Lamar Jackson's fourth quarter performance was a little concerning, and just they kept the Giants around and it bit them. So hopefully other teams learn. All right, now we can talk about the Bears. So Bears played on Thursday night. In case you were sad, don't worry. The Bears are on primetime this week, too, on Monday night. So, yay. I think we have some good news about that, though. We are actually doing our recording next week on Monday night during the second half of the Bears game. So, we'll be doing our usual news and notes, but then also having our TVs up in the background and laughing at the Bears, probably. You'll probably get to hear me shriek and cuss a lot, so it'll be fun. So, look for that recording to come out maybe a day early on Wednesday next week. So looking forward to that. But, unfortunately, the Bears are back on primetime. It's weird. I'll be honest. So far this year, the Bears have lost to the Vikings, who a bunch of my friends cheer for. Justin Fields has had a couple performances where he's gotten under 150 passing yards. I've received a combined 0 text messages from anybody that's not named David Lighting about like, oh, hey, can you believe the Bears did this? And, oh, hey, can you believe Justin Fields threw that ball or whatever? Kind of nothing like that. I get an occasional one from my brothers about Justin Fields' performance, but very rarely do I get a friend who texts me like, haha, the Bears lost, you guys suck. Bears put on orange helmets, and I get like 5 or 6 texts before the start of the game. Like, these are the sickest. I had 6 people text me about the Bears helmets, 5 of them positive, 1 of them negative. So I am now the foremost authority on the Bears uniform. So if you have any comments about any sort of Bears uniform or jerseys or helmets or anything, you're supposed to be reaching out to me now. So that's a confirmed thing. Just want you guys to keep that in mind in the future. Anywho, the game itself, this was the most winnable game the Bears have played in a long time, and we still blew it.
What?
I hate our red zone offense. Cannot stand it. Maybe on the play calling, maybe a little bit on the vision of the quarterback. Like when you have Equinemius St. Brown in the backfield being covered by a safety and running to the flat, to the pylon, and the safety being nowhere near him, having to play catch up to run to him, and then you throw it to the middle of the field off your offensive lineman's helmet. It ends up as an interception on the first drive of the game. Love that. Love the failure to get the ball to Darnell Mooney at the end for the game-winning touchdown. Loved, what was the other one? Oh, the one he missed whoever wide open on a really good play design. I love that. And then not getting the conversion.
But hey, he had a really cool scramble in the 2-minute drill.
That was pretty dope. When he fooled everybody by thinking that he was going to go out and then cut up the field with his, that was, the hip movement on that was perfect. So those are the kind of things I love seeing. And, you know, our offensive line sucks. You talk about how bad the Packers' offensive line, I don't even want to hear it, to be honest. Like, I guess the ceiling for you guys is much higher, so I guess I could see where it can be a little frustrating because you guys, Dad never asked you that. What happened to all your like mid-round picks or whatever? Aren't some of the ones out there now mid-round picks?
So, not the one not Zach Tom. He has not been playing. I won't go into this because it's our Bears segment, but there is a school of thought that the offensive line needs a little bit of a shakeup because Elton Jenkins, since he's come back from his injury, he's looked pretty good in run blocking, but his pass blocking has been a little suboptimal compared to his kind of record, which is very important when you play tackle, as you know. So there's been a school of thought that maybe they need to move him back to one of the guard positions and move Yash Neiman out to right tackle because he was the one that was backing up Bakhtiari and did a very, very good job. So we'll see what happens there. But who knows? Might see a Zach Tom appearance here before the month of October is over.
Next Hall of Famer.
Book it. Heard it here first.
Bears. It's the problem with the Bears. Well, not like a problem, but the Bears don't really have anybody to turn to. Like, we're just in the situation we're in, and if the guy out there sucks, it's not like there's someone on the bench who's going to be any better. I guess you could maybe, well, no, I don't even want to throw Leatherwood in unless it's in the position that he's actually meant to play, because I think that's what happened in the Raiders is he kept playing the wrong position and then looked awful. But Sam Mustipher is the one person I'll have a gripe with on our offensive line. He just doesn't look the part at all, so I don't know why he keeps getting chances on the field. But so yeah, Justin's not getting a whole lot of time. Our receiving still isn't very good. Play calling could be better. Not fumbling our punt to set up their only touchdown. The only thing they did all game, really, on their offensive side of the ball was the touchdown they scored because we muffed a punt and gave them 1st and 10 in the red zone. So, ready to go to Foxborough and just get destroyed. I think we lose by 15 plus. I don't think our offense is going to do anything to that Patriots defense. And yeah, I guess the only other thing I have to say is that I don't particularly think Ryan Fitzpatrick's line of logic after the game and his comments about Justin Field were entirely in line with how a normal person who watches football looks at it.
What did he say?
Something along the lines of Justin Fields isn't a pocket passer and that the scheme needs to be worked better for him, and also he's not Tom Brady or whatever. He's a Cam Newton type of player. And listen, I am just a guy who sits on a couch and watches football. I played for 1 year in 4th grade. Can't sit here and say that I know what it takes to be a football player. However, for a guy who was a serial backup his whole career, not sure Ryan Fitzpatrick opinion holds as much weight as maybe a Peyton Manning or even someone who didn't play quarterback like an all-pro like Richard Sherman. I'd be more likely to hear criticism from him or
Tony Gonzalez,
Tony Dungy. Just kind of like, more of the all-pro type of players or coaches. So, yeah, Ryan Fitzpatrick didn't really like his – I think he was just kind of going for the soundbite, but I'm not sure all the dots were connected in his argument, and I think they were a little harsh on Fields who, while isn't perfect, still is trying to do his best with the garbage around him and is doing an above average. I would say Fields is doing an above average job given what resources he currently has at his disposal.
It's 2 questions. Number 1 on the red zone blunders, if you will. I know you said you don't know if you should chalk that up to play calling or the players on the field and missing reads. I know I have talked fondly of Luke Getsy just because he came from Green Bay and it seemed to have done good things there. How long do you think that leash is when it comes to like a rebuild that the Bears are going through right now? Do you think next year, once you're able to rebuild a little bit, you get a more accurate look? Or at what point do you, as a Chicago Bears fan, sit back and say, okay, maybe this wasn't the answer because our offense has looked absolutely atrocious?
So I think if you have, talking from a player's perspective, if you have 6 games worth of film and nothing to back it up, so like a Sam Mustipher who consistently whiffs on the offensive line, or Bayless Jones as a punt returner, don't mind him as a receiver at all. I think he's a very good gadget player on the receiving side, but 2 weeks in a row, a very costly fumble on punt returns. If you have players who show on film consistently that they're just not up for it, I wouldn't mind, either benching them or whatever. Like we waived Smith Marset today, the guy who fumbled last week against the Vikings. He's now gone. As far as coaching, and as far as just, other players, like you could say a Cole Kmet, who for all intents and purposes isn't doing bad. He's just not nearly as productive as we had hoped, and that could be chalked up to a lot of things. If you're talking a Kendall Vildor, maybe lets up a catch here and there on the nickel corner, but is he playing awful? No. I think you just kind of got to let them ride it out, and as long as they're not costing us games with mistakes, I think, just let them get some experience. And on the coaching side, it's, I think everybody's doing their best with the tools they got. Like, could Luke Getsy be doing a better job? Sure. Is he the thing that's going to prevent us from getting 7 wins instead of 5? Probably not. So, I mean, honestly, a better draft pick wouldn't be the worst idea at this point. Although I want to win and I want to make sure the players that are playing right now get the best experience possible heading into next year, which is more important. But we have a tough schedule. I mean, these were supposed to be the Commanders. I won't even say the Vikings, but the Commanders, the Giants, those are supposed to be our winnable games. And so now that we're 2-4, we're going to be having a tough sled here coming up the next couple weeks. So it's all about building for next year.
So Roquan Smith's up at the end of this year, right?
Correct. But hey, he's representing himself.
Yeah. I know I said I don't like talking contracts midseason, but I am curious to see how that plays out.
I don't mind talking because it's now we have the playoffs to look forward to.
Yeah.
You talk about enjoying the ride. Our ride broke down quite a while ago. So yeah, it is what it is. But that was the games we had to talk about. I guess I can ask you if this report about Aaron Rodgers retiring at the end of the season has any merit to it. Have you been through this before?
Yes. When there is only one person and literally one person reporting a storyline and not a single one of the beat writers out of Green Bay is reporting it, I don't really put much into it. There's a couple of guys in Green Bay. Pete Doherty's one of them. Matt, I always forget his last name, from The Athletic, is another one of the good beat writers. There's a few guys up there that I put a lot more merit in than this random guy who has
Schneidman?
absolutely... Yeah, Matt Schneidman. Those guys I put a lot more stock into than some random guy that has zero connection to the franchise.
Yeah, so I don't think Rodgers is going to... Well, he could, but I don't think this random report is accurate. If he's going to retire, I'm pretty sure he'll probably decide either closer to the end of the season or after the season. So we'll see. Robbie Anderson got kicked out middle of the game against the... Who were they even playing? Panthers were playing...
The Rams, because it was a get-right game for the Rams.
Oh, yeah. So the Panthers playing the Rams. Robbie Anderson, receiver, one of the many Panthers like Christian McCaffrey, Brian Burns, DJ Moore. A bunch of the Panthers are on the trade block as they fired Rule and are looking towards next year already. So Robbie Anderson was arguing with the receivers coach and etc., saying some stuff. Steve Wilkes, interim coach, kicked him out of the game in the fourth quarter, sent him to the locker room. 2 days later, Anderson has now been traded to the Cardinals for a couple of late-round picks later on. Do you like the move to kick him out? And is all of Anderson's problems going to be solved by this trade in Arizona?
No one's problems are going to be solved by this trade. This doesn't solve Robbie Anderson issues, and this certainly does not solve any Arizona Cardinals issues. So, not that there was a lot of Packers fans that were clamoring for Robbie Anderson, but yeah, I don't know. It just seems this is one of those NFL drama moments that we're going to forget about in about 4 to 5 weeks when Robbie Anderson inevitably falls into the irrelevant category. Not saying he's not talented, but I think the hype around him was much higher uh, than it currently is.
I actually don't hate the trade. I think it's a really low risk trade for a team that's already flailing. So if you're talking like the Bills trading for him, I think that'd be a terrible idea because they're set. They don't need really any more. I mean, they could obviously sign OBJ, but you're talking about an established All Pro versus Robbie Anderson, guy just got kicked out of a game. Not quite sure where he's at now. I mean, he had some really good years with the Jets. Never really had that kind of great quarterback to throw to him. So we'll see if he can. I think he's a really good number 2 option for Arizona now that Hopkins is back. And
I do too.
Hopkins is going to get a lot of. He's going to get a lot of attention. So I think it's definitely pretty low risk for the Cardinals because what do they got? What do they have to lose at this point?
I should have clarified the whole becoming irrelevant. You're right. Robbie Anderson has not had the best quarterbacks throwing to him. I guess I just don't have faith in the Cardinals' offense at this point in Kliff Kingsbury and Kyler Murray to do him much good. So I should have clarified.
Well, hang on. They went up against the Seahawks, who were averaging 35 points a game against, and they put up 9. I don't know what you're talking about. I think this is also the first weekend where Brady and Rodgers were favored by a touchdown, and they both ended up losing.
Well, this is the first time since I'd be really interested to know the first time. This is the first time the Packers lost back-to-back games favored by more than a touchdown, and probably I couldn't even tell you.
It was the first time they lost back-to-back under LaFleur.
Yeah.
All right, here's another. I feel like this episode should be called Teeing Up Lighting. Here's another one. Titans in the city of Nashville have allegedly agreed to a $2.2 billion stadium deal in which the Titans pay for $800 million of it. Dome stadium. Don't know about capacity. I think they picked out a location somewhere near the East Bank area. They're trying to revitalize that area of Nashville. Taxpayer-funded stadiums. I know we talked about it with the Bears, but we didn't really dive into that portion of it. I know we got a quick jab in about the Illinois/Chicago government using tax funds appropriately, which is laughable. But go ahead about the potential new, mostly taxpayer-funded stadium here in Nashville.
So I think, and I'll preface this by saying one of the reasons these deals bug me so much is, yes, the Packers have had taxpayer-funded components to their stadium before, but everyone loves to rip on the stock offerings. But when they go towards capital improvements, it's like I love the idea that the people who actually support the team are the ones who foot the bill for it, at least to some extent. This one is a lot. Okay, in this, it might be showing my ignorance or maybe my prejudice towards the city of Chicago. This one I look at a little bit differently, simply because I still kind of disagree to a certain extent with the amount being put on the taxpayers. But this one really has the ability to become a major events facility and concert venue. And again, I'm not saying Arlington Heights doesn't have that, but between all the country music events and acts that would inevitably come here like they do to Nissan Stadium already, I guess. But just kind of the centralized location, I feel as though this stadium would do 10 times as much for the city of Nashville as, say, the Arlington Heights Stadium would do for that area and, the residents around that area. Because this is like a built-in location just ready to accept all of this, the inflow of, hotel stays and, dining and things like that. Again, the extent of which the citizens are on the hook for, I might disagree with to a certain amount. But I think there's a bigger possibility for this to do a lot more for the city of Nashville. And again, that's purely based on the geographical location.
I'd have to read. I'm definitely not a lawyer. I'd have to read into. I'm pretty sure Arlington Heights is technically a part of the Chicagoland area, so a lot of tax revenue would go to the Chicagoland area as opposed to just Arlington Heights.
Yeah.
So I do think, obviously I think there's a benefit for all of Chicago if there's a new stadium in which you can pour a lot of money into and have things like the Super Bowl and whatnot. And then you think about the city of Chicago. I mean, what band out there wouldn't want to play at Chicago? whenever they could in a huge domed stadium. What band, what college venue wouldn't want to have play Final Four there or host Final Four? Why wouldn't the Big Ten want to have their championship game there? Same with Nashville. Nashville, if they do this, they're going to get a Super Bowl eventually. They're going to have an important bowl game there at college at the minimum, especially if college is going to expand to 10, 12 games or whatever, or teams for the playoff. You're going to have
Four.
Yeah. I think it kind of goes back to my argument that I said about why the Bears should leave Soldier Field is immediately. It's all these reasons same for Nashville. It's just if you're not having a new stadium right now, you're doing it wrong. I think the Packers will find themselves a little bit in the Stone Age here in about 5 years, but also that's just their vibe, and that's totally fine. If that's the way they want to do it, I think it works for them because it's part of their history. It's part of what the fans want. It's part of that town of Green Bay. It works for them. You're talking about a major city like Chicago or Nashville. It'd be stupid not to.
Yeah, I think you have to look at the Green Bays, even the Buffaloes of the world, the Kansas Cities. I mean, hell, even Jacksonville. Those towns don't scream college football bowl games and Final Fours and things like that. So there are, I think, a select few teams. And you just look at the season ticket waiting list for places like Buffalo, Kansas City, and Green Bay that they can easily continue to survive on the football aspect. And Green Bay, admittedly, has been branching out into the summer concert scene and getting some big acts in there for concerts. But going back to Tennessee, I think that was part of my prejudice is there is very little infrastructure that needs to be added in addition to the stadium to make it very viable for those types of activities because it's all there. So you're really only looking at, and again, not saying that Chicago doesn't have those options, but you're just much more within walking distance and everything of downtown Nashville, having have been there for some big events in the past.
Yeah, it's going to ruin your IndyCar track if they just demolish Nissan Stadium or whatever.
That might be for the best. Love the idea of a Nashville race. We won't go off on that tangent, but that might be in the best interest of everyone if they need to redesign that track.
The Get Your Mouthguard Award is actually not football related this week. It's something I saw on Twitter. A Fox News contributor went on to their program. I think his name is Scott Martin. And as a leading news source for the entire world, Fox News, I'm sure everything on there is super credible. So goes on and talks about inflation. And one of his sticking points for why inflation is bad and why he thinks this country is going down the toilet is because when he went to lunch the other day at Taco Bell, he ended up spending $28. And that's inflation ruining this country or whatever, which prompted me to wonder, what did you spend? What did you get at Taco Bell to rack up a $28 tab? That has to take some skill. And my question to you is, if you're talking your kind of fast food, lower end places, would you be able to blow $28 on just yourself anywhere and actually finish the food and not just try one bite of everything?
Depends if it's 2 a.m. on a Saturday or not.
We're talking your height of your heyday in Grand Forks after a lower bowl, Pound Town, and the Ralph.
Certainly not. Certainly would not be able to. Okay, I just pulled up the Taco Bell online menu. Let's see if we can rack up a quick what our bill would be. So, Hickey, what would you like?
What would I like? I haven't been to a Taco Bell in 5 years. I'll do a chicken cheese quesadilla, a couple soft shell tacos, and a burrito. What does that put me at?
Okay, hold on.
It's got to be like $10, right?
Okay, you said a quesadilla, some tacos, and what?
And a burrito.
And a burrito. Okay, we're going to get you the chicken quesadilla combo. And that comes with a taco. What would you like to drink? You want a freeze? Do you want a Mountain Dew? You want a Baja Blast? Everyone likes a good
Sure, let's do a
Baja
Baja Blast.
right?
I can't really get that
There you
anywhere
go.
else, can I?
Nope. Okay, so I'll add that to order. And then you also said you wanted a burrito, so get one of those puppies queued up. Man, we're making progress on this total already, I'd say that much. Okay, would you like a burrito supreme, a beefy 5-layer burrito, a cheese and bean and rice burrito, a beefy burrito melt, a fiesta veggie burrito? You got options.
Let's do the melt.
Ooh, that looks pretty good. Okay, we'll add that. All right. Do you want any dessert, or can I go on to my order?
Well, what am I at? Because this was just for one guy. So what
Oh,
what
yeah.
did what am I at so far?
You are currently at. Let's see. I apologize about my dog barking. You are at $10.69.
For 3 tacos, a quesadilla, and a burrito?
Oh, that's only one taco. Add the other tacos, and you're still probably only looking at 14.
Okay. Oh, well, yeah. So I'm halfway there. So all right. So what would you add?
Honestly, probably the same as you. So well, I'd add like the Mexican pizza, but we're still well under $28.
That's insane.
I don't know. Maybe he got dessert.
Maybe. Well, part of me wonders if he like brought a relative or significant other or something and just left that out of his spiel.
Convenient reporting.
Yeah, I think we did this fast food potluck with some friends one time where we went and grabbed McNuggets. They went and got some Domino's pizza. Someone else went and got a taco box, and someone went to Subway and got like a party sub or something. And so I remember distinctly going into McDonald's and asking for 100 nuggets and getting quite the oblong looks. I think I kind of deprived their location of McNuggets for the evening, but
Do you remember the YouTube channel that did Epic Mealtime?
oh yeah, that was awesome yet sad in the same regards. I think the fast food lasagna is still one of the most terrifying things I've ever seen created.
That thing probably didn't even cost $28.
Let's see, it was for sure did. It was 15 Big Macs, 15 teen burgers, 15 baconators, onion rings, like 10 packs of bacon, bottle of Jack Daniels, 10 pounds of cheese. Those were the days. Or about the turducken? It was the bird inside of bird inside of bird inside
Oh
of
yeah,
bird
you take the
inside of bird
turkey and the
inside of
duck
bird
and the
inside of
and the chicken
quail,
and turducken.
quail meat.
Before we get too far away from football, I just wanted to let you know I had my coaching tree take validated by some listeners that said, I usually agree with almost everything Hickey says, but when you guys started talking coaching trees, he couldn't have been further from the truth. So the Packers lost, but at least I got that.
You just want to make me feel bad.
Yeah, because I want to make myself feel better. That's like
Okay.
bullying 101.
I think the sad part about that statement was that they usually agree with everything I say. That was mistake number 1, obviously. So, sounds like you're surrounding yourself with the wrong kind of people.
Yeah, didn't say I was good at that either, so.
Neither here nor there. Well, to those out there, I am really excited to see what Matt LaFleur does and how poorly it reflects on Mike Vrabel. So, if you have any concerns about that, my Twitter handle is @Hickey93. I'd love to hear that feedback. So we'll go from there. I think Mike Vrabel is going to have a tough couple of months with Matt LaFleur staining his record forever, right?
I was having enough of you. This is our cue to end the episode.
Well, I think the Sean McVay coaching tree is currently on fire. So
yeah, that truly is. That truly is.
So maybe he should be on Vrabel's tree. I don't know. But yeah. That was it. Like I said, next week we're recording on Monday night, so it should be a lot of fun listening to me cuss at the Bears in real time. But we'll be posting it at the same kind of 2 days after we record, so it's not like we're going to be live streaming or anything like that. So yeah.
Check out all of our socials. Check out the blog every Friday or just about every Friday. I have my 4 wagers for the week that come out. I'm currently 9-7 on the season, so I'm above 500, so I'm plus units, so check that out. And be sure to follow our Instagram so you can see all the hate that Hickey throws at each one of your favorite teams, because that's about the number 1 skill he has.
Who else do I hate on other than the Colts?
The Packers.
And there's
The
30 other
Bears.
teams.
Dude, you hate on the Bears more than I hate on the Bears.
It's okay for me to hate on the Bears as a Bears fan. That is perfectly acceptable.
You still hate on them. The Lions, the Vikings.
You tell
Pretty
me
much
you like the
everyone with
Lions?
Pretty much everyone with the Bills.
Any team that ends in an S, I probably hate.
Isn't there like one NFL team that doesn't end in an S?
I think they all do.
Do they?
Yeah. They're all plural something.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right.
I think it's the Chicago way is to hate every team. But yes, if you want to go to our socials and make fun of me for being an asshole to your team, I'm all yours. Comes with the territory, right?
It does. My dog's currently looking at me like he's done something wrong, but I think he's just hungry.
I think that's our cue. Everybody,
All right.
thanks for listening. Hope you have a good one and enjoy week 7. Asshole. What are you talking about?
Dude, chill. Look at this. Miller's like got his tail between his legs.